All right, Math B Honors students, welcome to part 2 of the 1.1c lesson. Unfortunately, my first video uh, did not record the audio, so I'm going to do this second half again, and let's go ahead and start with number 7. So during this section of the lesson, we are trying to solve the equation with multiple strategies. Obviously, you want to use a strategy that you are most comfortable with. And let's go ahead and look at this equation. 0.25x plus 0.5 equals 0.75. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that we can clear the decimal or the decimals by multiplying the entire equation by 100, right? Remember that if you multiply something by 10, you're basically just moving one placeholder. And if you multiply by 100, you're moving the decimal place 2 placeholders. And this effectively gets rid of all the decimal points, and it gives us whole numbers, and it just makes our life easier. So if I multiply, remember that each term has to be multiplied by the 100, and you kind of just move 2 spots, and you end up getting 25x plus 50 is equal to 75. So this is not really the hardest question. You may have been able to do that without multiplying 100 and just realizing that you always subtract away the constant to isolate the variable. You get 25x is equal to 25. So it's kind of obvious what x has to be. Divide both sides by 25. You get x is equal to 1. Always box your answer. So I'm going to do another strategy right now, and it's a little different. I'm actually going to convert to fraction, convert all decimals to a fraction. I know it's a little bit maybe not necessary, but you'll see very soon that it's still really, really easy, right? Now, these are all in quarters. You can kind of say that this is 2 quarters or 50 cents, and this is 3 quarters. So I'm going to actually convert them to 1/4 x plus 2/4, right? I could write 1/2 here, but I'm going to write 2/4, and I'm going to set that equal to 3/4. Now, a little bit of an overstep, like maybe you don't need to do this, but one thing I can do is I can multiply and clear the denominator here and get rid of all of the 4s on the bottom. So then I end up getting x plus 2 is equal to 3. And really, this equation was a lot easier because first of all, I mean, this equation is not that challenging in general, but the fact that I had the ability to convert all of the decimals to a denominator 4, that actually could be the route that you want to use. So uh, as you are getting more comfortable solving equations, you want to just continue to use whatever strategy is or makes the most sense to you. Okay? So there are really good questions here. I would like you to review them yourself. 8 and 9 look pretty good, pretty solid. I'm actually going to skip all the way to something that looked like number 12. And let's go ahead and let's start with number 12. So this is something that we've talked about already in this class where there's a negative right outside of a group. Remember that the order of operations, again, please excuse or parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. You have to get rid of your grouping first. That's always the first step. Now, it doesn't look like there's much that you have to do, but you do want to distribute that negative to both terms on the inside of the parentheses. So you end up getting 0.2a minus a plus 0.2a. Now, some of you may be wondering, could I have just simplified a minus 0.2a? And the answer is yes, you could have done that as well. So again, there are multiple routes you can go. But 0.2a minus a plus a 0.2a, really it's kind of like saying 0.4a minus a whole a. So it's 4/10 of an a subtracting a full 10 out of 10a. Hopefully you're okay with thinking about it that way. You should realize that that's going to be negative 0.6a, right? Because 0.2a and 0.2a is 0.4a. And then 0.4a with a negative 1.0a is negative 0.6a, okay? And then this is just equal to 3. All right, so now I'm going to actually do something really interesting, and I'm going to multiply this entire equation by negative 10. Not only am I going to multiply this left side by negative 10, I'm also going to multiply this right side. You have to do it to every term in the equation. And this actually ends up making my negative go away. Now, I did that because you always want the variable to be positive. And this ends up making it just 6a is equal to negative 30. Okay? And then you just divide away the 6, just like you're used to, and you get a is negative 5. This is definitely an interesting question. And yeah, make sure you understand that you always have to distribute that negative in front of that group. Okay. Right below it, number 14, also a very good question already, because we're going to have to distribute a fraction. You know, sometimes I feel like we give fractions a bad reputation, or we kind of bully fractions because we say that, oh, we all hate fractions or fractions are difficult, but really they're not. You just have to just, practice distributing, practice multiplying them more. You'll realize that actually fractions are potentially even nicer than decimals. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the parentheses. You do not want to do 9 minus 1/4. That would be a huge misconception. That would be effectively subtraction, and that's literally the last step that you're supposed to do. So don't get tricked by this kind of misconception here. So you get negative 1/4 times x, which is negative 1/4 x, negative 1/4 times 3, which is negative 3/4, and then this 9 gets to kind of join the party, right? There is a plus here you could write if you want. Just realize that this is a negative 1/4. Then this is equal to 10 because the 10 was on the right side. Okay, so out of habit, I think a good route to go from here is, you guessed it, multiply every term by 4, right? We're going to get rid of the denominators that way. Then we'll only have whole numbers and integers, really, and that will make our life a lot easier, right? So fractions are really not that bad as long as you just clear the fractions pretty much routinely. So 9 times 4 is 36. Negative 1/4 times 4. Well, there's still a negative, but it's the 1/4 times 4 ends up being just negative 1. And the negative 3/4 times 4 is negative 3. And this is going to equal 40. I'll be honest, class, sometimes even I forget to multiply this 10 by the 4. If you do that, you've basically multiplied the left side by 4, and you have done nothing to the right side. So that's not, just think about that. That can't be equal. That can't be fair, right? Combine like terms, 36 and negative 3. I know that that's positive 33. So I end up getting negative x plus 33 is equal to 40. Then you subtract 33, and you end up getting negative x is equal to 7. And some of you may think that this is acceptable because the variable looks decently isolated. But just remember, class, that your variable always has to be positive. That's just the rule of algebra. you have to keep your variable positive, and you should never be okay with a negative variable as an answer. So all you really have to do is just divide away the negative, and you end up with x is equal to -7. These questions are really, really good, class. I'm gonna leave. Actually, we have time for one more. Let's try 16. Go ahead and pause the video if you want. I think this is a good time to pause. Just try 16 on your own. See how comfortable you are with distributing a fraction and combining like terms or clearing the decimal. Okay, so pause, and we'll begin in 3 seconds. Okay, so for 16, just as we've been doing this entire lesson, you always want to distribute your fraction, this value, outside of the group. And later on, we could talk about, potentially not distributing, but right now, because of the ease of it, I'm gonna ask that you always distribute this outside of the parentheses as your first step. Okay, so then we get 2/5 n, and 2/5 times -5 is actually a very, very clean number. It's kind of like 2/5 times 5. So if you're thinking about what that is, it's really just you see the 5 on the top and the 5 on the bottom, and they cancel. So it's good when you multiply a 2/5 with a 5. But don't forget that it was negative. Okay, so then you get plus 2n is equal to 1/10. So this is interesting. I could convert the 2/5 to a 4/10, right, class? And then I can make these two fractions have a denominator of 10, and then I can multiply the entire equation by 10. But I'm going to show you that you don't even have to convert this to 2/5, right? If you just multiply by 10, you will effectively get rid of this denominator. Just ask yourself this, class. What's 2/5 times 10 over 1? 2/5 times 10 over 1 is actually, you can say it's 20 divided by 5, or it's really just, if you cross simplify here, you end up just getting a 4, right? So I didn't even have to change this denominator to a 10, and I knew that 2/5 times 10 would get rid of the denominator, right? As you practice this more, as you do these problems and for homework or during class, you'll realize that some fractions still can work well with each other, right? But don't forget to multiply every single term by that 10. Okay, and then from here, you're at the home stretch. You can already feel like you're almost close to the answer. 4n plus 20n is 24n minus 20 is equal to 1. So this is what we call a two-step equation. And now all you have to do is always get rid of the constant first. 24n is equal to 21. And divide away the 24. And actually, this cannot be the final answer because it can be simplified. So what is the common factor that 21 and 24 share? It's not the most obvious, but we do know that 21 is divisible by 3, and 24 is obviously divisible by 3 as well. N is going to equal 7/8. Okay, please go over these problems. Again, I chose the most challenging one, so you have a good reference. Obviously, these other ones are also great questions. The more practice you do, the better you'll be at doing these solving equation problems. So have fun.